The translator wasn't supposed to spark. It was supposed to hum softly, flash green, and quietly bridge the gap between species like it had 1,000 times before. Instead, it emitted a noise like an offended insect, flashed 3 colors that definitely weren't on the manual, and promptly died in a puff of embarrassed smoke. Milo stared at it in his hands, sighed, and said the most dangerous phrase a human could ever utter in deep space. Huh, that's weird. Across the cramped maintenance alcove, the alien girl froze. Her name, according to the station registry, was Solari of the 9th Red. Cultural liaison, provisional observer, emotionally reserved to the point of legend. Her people were known for 2 things: terrifying efficiency and an almost religious devotion to precise communication. The translator clipped to her collar wasn't just a convenience. It was social armor. Without it, she couldn't hear him. Without it, he couldn't understand her, and without it, she looked exposed. Solari's eyes, large, luminous, and far too expressive for a species that claimed emotional minimalism, tracked every movement Milo made. Her posture was rigid, hands folded tightly behind her back like she was bracing for an inspection she might fail, Milo noticed. Humans always notice things like that, even when they really shouldn't. "It's okay," he said gently, even though he knew she couldn't understand the words. "I can fix it." He gestured awkwardly, miming repair with exaggerated confidence. She tilted her head, studying him the way one studied a potential hazard that hadn't decided whether it was dangerous yet. Slowly, cautiously, she unclipped the translator and handed it to him. That alone should have been a warning. In Solari's culture, removing one's translator in front of another species was considered an act of profound trust or catastrophic desperation. Sometimes both. Milo took it with a careful smile and sat on the floor, tools already scattered around him in the comfortable chaos that made alien observers deeply uneasy. Humans, it turned out, did their best thinking surrounded by mess. He cracked the casing open and frowned. "Oh, wow," he muttered. "Who wired this thing?" It's like they were afraid of redundancy. Solari watched his lips move, unable to hear the tone, only the rhythm. The way his brows furrowed in concentration. The way he hummed softly, unconsciously, while working. It was distracting. She told herself it was purely observational curiosity. Humans were famously inefficient but strangely resilient. Studying them was her assignment. Still, her chest felt tight. Milo worked faster than protocol recommended, fingers flying with practiced ease. He wasn't a senior engineer. He wasn't even officially assigned to her division. He was just helpful. That strange human trait that had already caused 3 diplomatic incidents this quarter, alone. As he adjusted a crystalline relay, he spoke again, unaware that the translator's partial reboot had begun catching fragments. "You know," he said, half to himself, "this model compensates for emotional subtext way too aggressively. No wonder things get messy." Solari blinked. The translator flickered. "No." Her breath caught. Milo didn't notice. He was smiling faintly now, relaxed in that infuriating human way. "I mean, communication's already hard enough without the tech trying to guess what we mean. Sometimes you just have to say things straight." The translator stabilized another percentage point. "Communication. Hard enough?" Her hands curled at her sides. Milo leaned back, stretching. "Like, okay, this might sound weird, but I think you're braver than most people here. You come from a species that prides itself on control, and you still volunteered to live among emotional chaos like us." The translator clicked. "You're braver than most." Solari's skin flushed a soft, startled color. Milo froze. "Oh, wait. Can you hear me?" She swallowed. "I can hear parts." He winced. "Ah, great, that's my fault. Sorry, I tend to talk when I shouldn't." He looked genuinely embarrassed, which somehow made everything worse. He turned back to the device, working carefully now. "I didn't mean to put you on the spot. For what it's worth, I think you're doing amazing." The translator fully rebooted. Every word landed perfectly. Solari stiffened like she'd been struck by a kinetic wave. "You think highly of me?" she asked, voice quiet but precise. Milo blinked. "Yeah? I mean, professionally and, personally, I guess? Her pupils dilated. Her translator pulsed once, then began frantically annotating emotional context in the corner of her vision. Unfiltered affection detected. Multilingual intent cascade initiated. Milo smiled nervously. Look, if that came out wrong, I'm really sorry. Humans sometimes say things without thinking. Solari's voice dropped to a whisper. How many languages? Do you speak? He shrugged. Just English. A little Spanish. Why? The translator chimed cheerfully. Confession registered in 12 cultural lexicons. Status. Romantic in 10 overwhelming. Solari took a shaky step back. Milo frowned. Okay, that noise doesn't sound good. You have, she said slowly, just expressed emotional admiration, personal validation, and future-oriented respect. In 12 recognized forms of courtship? Milo stared at her. I said you were brave. Yes, she replied faintly. In every language that matters. Silence filled the alcove. Then Milo laughed. Not because it was funny, but because humans laughed when the universe did something impossibly ridiculous and there was no manual for that either. Well, he said, rubbing the back of his neck, on the bright side, at least the translator works now. Solari didn't laugh. She was too busy wondering how a species capable of this level of emotional chaos hadn't already rewritten the galaxy by accident. And Milo, still smiling awkwardly, had no idea that with a screwdriver, a compliment, and zero intent, he had just crossed a line no one had warned him existed. By the time the translator finished buffering its emotional annotations, Solari had gone very still, that Milo would later learn. Was far worse than panic. The device at her collar pulsed gently, projecting translucent symbols only she could see. Each one was a contextual overlay, a cultural footnote, a legal interpretation layered atop his words, like an overenthusiastic lawyer who'd had too much caffeine and not enough empathy, admiration gives. Signal of selective attention validation gives. Offer of emotional shelter, future-oriented respect gives. Implied continuity of beyond 12 times. 12 cultures. 12 very serious misunderstandings. Milo shifted his weight, suddenly acutely aware that the air between them felt thicker than station standard. You're very quiet, he said carefully. That's usually when someone's about to tell me I messed up. Solari's gaze snapped back to him. Her expression was controlled, but the faint color rippling beneath her skin betrayed something dangerously close to flustered. You did not mess up, she said. You detonated. Oh, Milo replied. That sounds worse. She took a slow breath. Human Milo, do you often express admiration so freely? He shrugged. I mean, yeah. People don't hear good things about themselves enough. Seems like a waste not to say them when you notice. The translator chimed again, softer this time, like it was trying not to interrupt. Note, human casual affection levels remain uncontained. Solari looked away, visibly composing herself. Among my people, such statements are rationed? Yes, emotional affirmation is typically reserved for long-term alliances, bonded units, or mates. Milo's eyebrows climbed his forehead. Right, okay, so that's on me. She glanced back. You did not know. No, he admitted. We're bad at knowing when we're crossing invisible lines. We don't even see half of them. That, she said quietly, has become abundantly clear. They left the maintenance alcove together, walking side by side through a corridor that suddenly felt much narrower than before. Milo kept his hands firmly in his pockets, like that might somehow prevent him from accidentally proposing again through sheer body language. Solari's translator continued to hum, recalibrating in real time. Every few steps, it would emit a soft tone, logging micro-expressions, posture shifts, tonal inflections. Milo noticed the sound. Is it supposed to do that? She hesitated. It is attempting to downgrade the significance of your statements. Good luck with that, he muttered. They reached a junction where the corridor opened into a communal atrium. A few aliens lingered there, observers, traders, diplomats pretending not to eavesdrop. Several sets of eyes turned toward them. One being with too many antennae perked up noticeably when Solari's translator chimed again. "Define bad," she exhaled. "My species does not advertise emotional developments. Especially not preliminary ones." "Preliminary?" Milo echoed. "There are stages?" Her skin flushed a deeper shade. "There are always stages." The antennaed alien leaned over to a companion and whispered something that caused both of them to look directly at Milo with what could only be described as professional interest. Milo leaned closer to Solari. "I think I'm being evaluated." "You are," she confirmed. "Possibly recruited or interrogated." Tuesday then." They reached her quarters, a quiet alcove marked with sigils denoting diplomatic privacy. Solari paused at the threshold, fingers hovering near the access panel. "There is a complication," she said. Milo braced himself. "Of course there is. The translator," she continued, "has flagged you as a potential emotional constant." He frowned. "I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like a big deal." "It is the designation given to individuals whose presence measurably stabilizes another's emotional state." Milo blinked. "I fixed a gadget and said you were brave." "Yes," she said softly. "You did both without expectation." The door slid open, revealing a space that was immaculate, minimalist, and clearly designed for someone who valued order. Milo stayed firmly in the doorway. "Look," he said, "if this is going to cause you problems, I can dial it back. Less talking. Fewer compliments. Maybe just grunts?" Her lips twitched. "That would not help. Figures." She studied him for a long moment. "Human Milo, I need to understand something." "Shoot." "Were your words true?" He didn't answer immediately. Not because he needed to think about it, but because suddenly the weight of honesty felt heavier than any accidental confession. "Yes," he said simply. "They were." Her translator went very, very quiet. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Solari stepped aside, gesturing him in. "Then you should come inside." Milo hesitated. "Is that safe?" She met his eyes. "For you?" "Yes, for me." A faint, wry smile touched her lips. "Unclear." Inside, the door slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing them away from the curious galaxy outside. Solari leaned against the wall, eyes closed for just a second, as if steadying herself. "My people will ask questions," she said. "They will analyze your behavior, your intentions, your suitability." "Suitability for what?" Milo asked carefully. Her eyes opened. "For staying." The word hung there, heavier than any translator overlay. Milo felt something warm and nervous bloom in his chest. "I'm not very good at being suitable." She smiled just a little. "That may be precisely the problem." Somewhere in the station's data core, a new report auto-generated. Human subject unintentional emotional influence. Status, escalating, and Milo. Blissfully underqualified for the role he was drifting into. Wondered how many more languages he might accidentally confess in just by being himself. By the next cycle, the station had developed a rumor problem. Milo knew this because 3 different beings he had never met nodded at him with varying degrees of approval, concern, or outright delight as he crossed the central concourse. One of them offered him a small wrapped package that pulsed warmly in his hands before scuttling away. Another bowed. A third simply stared at him with the intense focus usually reserved for structural weaknesses and prey. He stopped walking and muttered, "I really need a rule book." Solari, walking beside him, did not slow. "There is one," she said calmly. "It is several thousand pages long and contradicts itself." Comforting. Her translator was silent now. Not broken, adjusted, it had learned. Or at least stopped panicking every time Milo breathed in a way that suggested kindness. That alone worried her people. They reached a small council chamber informal by interstellar standards, which still meant intimidating architecture and seating arranged to make honesty feel like a liability. Several members of the Ninth Thread were already present, their attention sharpening the moment Silari entered, and then they noticed Milo. Conversation stalled. One of the elders tilted their head. So this is the human. Milo gave a small wave. Hi, I brought nothing ceremonial and I apologize in advance. Silari's skin flickered. The Kelari equivalent of a suppressed smile. You are aware, another elder said slowly, that you have destabilized one of our most precise emotional analysts. Milo winced. I swear that wasn't the plan. Intent is irrelevant, the elder replied. Impact is not. Silari straightened. With respect, I am not destabilized. I am recalibrated. That earned her several startled looks. You have been distracted, the elder countered. Yes, she said. By curiosity. By warmth. By the realization that efficiency is not the only measure of value. Milo glanced at her. Something quietly stunned passing over his face. The elders murmured among themselves. One turned to Milo. Human, explain yourself. He spread his hands. I didn't come here to change anyone. I just talk. Sometimes too much. And I listen. That's kind of our thing. Listening is passive, the elder said. Milo shook his head. No, it isn't. Listening is choosing to care about what you hear. The room went very quiet. Silari felt something settle in her chest, then something steady and grounding. She realized with a flicker of alarm that this was what the translator had meant by emotional constant. The questioning continued, drifting into territory that made Milo increasingly uncomfortable. Do you intend to remain near Citizen Silari? I don't intend to abandon her, he replied carefully. That is not an answer. It's the only honest one I've got. And if she were reassigned? Milo hesitated. Silari felt that hesitation like a physical thing, sharp and vulnerable. I'd be disappointed, he said finally. But I wouldn't try to cage her. Humans don't own people they care about. The elders exchanged looks. One of them made a note. That distinction, they said, is unusual. After the session ended, they were released without resolution, which Milo was learning was the galaxy's preferred way of saying things. We're about to get complicated. They walked in silence for a while. Until Silari spoke. You could have said you wished to stay, she said quietly. I could have, Milo agreed. But I didn't want it to sound like a claim. She stopped walking and turned to him fully. And if it were not a claim? He met her gaze. Then I'd want it to be a choice. Yours, not something I said under pressure. Her skin glowed, slow and luminous. You're very dangerous, Milo. He smiled faintly. I've been told. That evening, though, evening was a generous term on a station that never slept. Silari invited him to share a meal. Not ceremonial. Not recorded. Just food. They sat on opposite sides of a low table in her quarters, the space warmer now, less rigid. The dishes were simple, nutrient-balanced, designed for efficiency rather than pleasure. Milo tasted his portion and made a face. Okay, I mean this respectfully, but humans would riot if this was dinner every night. Silari watched him, amused. Your people prioritize sensory satisfaction? We prioritize not being miserable while eating. She tried a bite of his ration smuggled from Earth and technically against regulation. Her eyes widened slightly. This is excessive. It's pasta. It contains joy. He grinned. Told you. They talked. About nothing important. About everything. Milo told her about Earth's oceans, about rain that smelled different depending on where you were, about music that made no sense but felt right anyway. She told him about her people's cities, built for harmony and silence, about how emotion was managed like a resource that could be depleted if misused. And now? Milo asked. And now, she admitted, I find myself wanting. The word trembled as she said it. Milo didn't rush to fill the silence. He let it exist, the way humans did when something mattered. That's okay, he said eventually. Wanting doesn't mean you're broken. She studied him. Your species is very comfortable with longing. We're not, he said softly. We just pretend better. Later, as he prepared to leave, she hesitated by the door. Milo, she said, voice steady but eyes uncertain. My people will continue to observe you. Yeah, he replied. I figured they may attempt to formalize this connection. He swallowed. And what do you want? She didn't answer immediately. When she did, it was with quiet certainty. I want to continue choosing you, even if it complicates everything. Milo smiled, warmth blooming in his chest. Then I guess we're already doing that. The door slid shut behind him. Across the station, reports updated again. Emotional variance increasing. Human influence expanding. Predictive models failing spectacularly, and Solari, alone but steadier than she had ever been. Realized that somewhere between a broken translator and an honest human voice, her carefully ordered universe had learned a new language, one that didn't need translating at all. By the time the ninth thread convened again, the station's predictive systems had quietly stopped trying to model Milo. They still tracked him, of course. The galaxy never stopped tracking anything that caused this many statistical anomalies. But every simulation that attempted to forecast his influence ended the same way. Cascading probability errors, emotional spikes in non-emotive species, and at least one line of code that simply read undefined human factor before crashing. Naturally, this made him a matter of urgent concern. Milo found out because a drone followed him into a supply corridor and politely asked him to please refrain from destabilizing additional civilizations until further notice. I'll do my best, he told it. No promises. Solari heard about it minutes later and arrived at his side with the controlled urgency of someone who had absolutely panicked internally and then organized that panic into a straight posture. They are convening a binding review, she said. Milo sighed. That sounds expensive. It is, she agreed. In authority, the review chamber was fuller this time. Representatives from 3 allied species attended, all of them united by a shared discomfort with how easily one human had disrupted centuries of emotional regulation theory. Solari stood beside Milo, not behind him. That alone caused murmurs. The presiding elder began without preamble. Human Milo of Earth, you have been categorized as a persistent emotional catalyst. Milo raised an eyebrow. That's a long way to say annoying. Several translators hesitated, unsure whether to soften that. We wish to understand, the elder continued, why your presence creates attachment responses across incompatible species. Milo thought about it. Honestly, I think it's because we don't optimize our feelings. We let them be messy. That is inefficient. Yeah, he said. But it's honest. Solari felt her chest tighten not unpleasantly at the word. The elder turned to her. Citizen Solari, you have requested exemption from reassignment. Yes, you cite personal choice. Yes. This is unprecedented. She inclined her head. So was silence once. So was curiosity. So was the idea that logic alone could sustain a civilization. A ripple moved through the chamber. The elder studied her carefully. And this human? Solari looked at Milo. He did not look away. He did not speak for her. He does not claim me, she said. He does not bind me. He simply stays. Milo's throat tightened. He hadn't realized how much that mattered until she said it aloud. The deliberation that followed was long, dense, and thick with bureaucratic irony. Species that reproduced through spores debated emotional exclusivity. Entities that had never experienced romantic attachment argued its dangers with academic passion. One particularly ancient observer suggested that humans should be classified as a controlled substance. Eventually, the elder raised a hand. The ninth thread cannot prohibit emotional convergence, they said slowly. Nor can we formalize it without contradiction. Therefore, we will permit. Milo blinked. Permit what? This? The elder gestured vaguely between him and Solari. Whatever it is you are doing. Under observation. Solari exhaled, the sound almost a laugh. Milo grinned. That's basically every human relationship. Life, afterward, did not become simpler. It became warmer, Milo's quarters slowly filled with things he hadn't realized he missed until they existed again. Shared meals, quiet conversations, Solari sitting with him while he repaired things that didn't need fixing just to feel useful. She learned human expressions with alarming speed. Mastering sarcasm like a forbidden art. You are deflecting, she told him one evening. Yep. You are uncomfortable. Also, YEP. Is it because I am watching you eat? Peanut butter directly from the container? Definitely that. She tried it once and spent several minutes in stunned silence. This is aggressive. Love language, he said. She watched him more openly now. Asked questions that were not strictly necessary. Observed the way he softened around children of other species, how he apologized to inanimate objects, how he treated emotion as something to be shared rather than managed. You do not fear loss, she said once. Milo considered that. No, I fear not having tried. The station noticed the change. Emotional baselines shifted. Conflict resolution times dropped. A minor trade dispute was resolved after Milo made tea for both parties and listened without interrupting. The report listed this as unacceptable methodology with disturbingly effective results. Solari found him one cycle later, sitting by the viewport, staring out at the stars with a familiar, quiet intensity. You are thinking too loudly, she said. He smiled without turning. You're learning. She joined him. You will leave eventually. Yeah, he admitted. Humans do that. And yet, she said softly, you are still here. He looked at her then, really looked, and the humor faded into something steadier. I stay where I'm wanted, he said. Her skin glowed, slow and sure. Then stay. The galaxy would later argue about what exactly changed because of one human who refused to optimize his heart. Historians would debate the moment empathy became a recognized force in interstellar law. Analysts would struggle to quantify warmth, but Milo and Solari didn't care about that. They sat together, watching stars burn quietly in the distance, choosing each other without ceremony or contract or ancient bond, and somehow, that simple human chaos was enough to rewrite the universe.